Hi, I'm Chris Wardlaw for CarGurus, and that car parked behind me is the 2016 Honda Accord. Now, Honda says that more people buy Accords than any other car in the country, and it's easy to understand why. Nevertheless, for 2016, Honda has made a number of changes to the Accord to make sure that it remains popular and on people's shopping lists. Now, the version of the Accord that we're driving today is the brand new touring trim level. It's the top of the line model. Costs over $35,000. It's got a few new items on it. Basically makes me wonder why Honda really even bothers with the Acura brand anymore. Now, you don't have to spend that much money to get an Accord sedan. You can get one for just around $23,000. That would be the LX trim level. And then there are a whole bunch of different trim levels in between the LX and the Touring. Now, the Touring model comes with a standard 3.5 liter V6 engine. It's making 278 horsepower. Most Accords have a 4-cylinder engine, and I think that consumers are probably overlooking the V6 to too great an extent. And the reason is because this engine is actually fairly fuel efficient. It's got something called variable cylinder management. That shuts off a couple of the cylinders when they're not needed, such as when cruising on the highway. That improves your fuel economy. So with the V6, you get 278 horsepower, you get fantastic acceleration, you get great passing power. And yesterday I drove 90 miles straight on the freeway doing about 70, 80 miles an hour, and this thing was getting 33.5 miles per gallon. I think that's pretty impressive. Now, the Accord ends up on the Car and Driver 10 Best list every year, has for over 2.5 decades. And you might scratch your head and wonder why that is. You might think, is Honda, kicking back some money for advertising or something? Are they paying for that accolade? You have to drive an Accord to understand why this car ends up on an Enthusiast magazine's 10 Best list every single year. Especially with the V6 engine, and especially with the 19-inch wheels that come on the Sport and Touring models for 2016, this car is fantastic to drive pretty much all the time. Now, the 19s do two things that you might not like. Number one, this car's got a slightly stiffer ride quality with these wheels and tires, something that some people might not like very much. Worse than that, though, and the only thing that really bothers me about how this car drives, is that it increases the turning radius so that when you're pulling a U-turn or you're maneuvering in a parking space or a parking lot, it takes a lot more wheel work to get yourself either around that U-turn or into that space or around those other vehicles. That's probably the worst thing about going with the Sport or the Touring model and the 19-inch wheels. Well, that, of course, there's also the replacement tire cost, which is not cheap. But in terms of the driving dynamics, the steering, the brakes, the handling, the ride quality, all very well done. As far as comfort is concerned, the driver's seat is exceptionally comfortable, but Honda is missing one important ingredient for a car that's priced $35,000, and that is ventilated front seats. Now, fortunately, lately, the weather here in Southern California has been fairly cool, but man, I love me some cooled seats, especially when it's hot and muggy outside, and you can't get them on an Accord. Now, as far as the front passenger seat is concerned, it's comfortable too, but here's a deal breaker in my own household. My wife can't stand cars that don't have front passenger seat height adjusters. You can't get one in an Accord. I don't know why that would be. Honda probably needs to fix that. Now, as far as the back seat comfort is concerned, there's lots of space back there, big rear doors, easy to get in and out, lots of thigh support. Adults are going to be very comfortable back there. The trunk is roomy too, but again, couple of little flaws with the trunk. Number one, you can't put two full-size suitcases side by side, slide them all the way to the seat back. That's because the wheel wells kind of intrude on the space. That seems like a pretty big oversight to me. Number two, when you're done loading things in the trunk and you go to close the trunk, there's no handle on the inside. There's no slot to put your fingers, so you have to put your fingers on the outside of the lid, which more often than not is probably dirty, and slam the trunk down. Now, as far as little problems with the Accord. It's those kinds of things that after you live with the vehicle for a while, really start to make you a little crazy. Also, the infotainment system is dramatically improved this year, but there are still a few little things here and there that are missing. So for example, a reversing camera with 3 different types of views that you can program comes standard. But there's no rear cross traffic alert. And I happen to find that exceptionally useful, especially if you're reversing from a parking space and you've got 2 big SUVs on either side of you, or even if you're just coming out of your driveway in the suburbs. It's really important to have that rear cross traffic alert system, and I can't find it on this car. Another thing that makes me a little crazy is Honda's insistence on using its lane watch technology. So lane watch basically uses a camera on the right side mirror, and it shows you what's in your right side blind spot. For your left side blind spot, you have to rely on this parabolic mirror over here. Now the issue that I have with lane watch is that it projects that right side image on the infotainment screen, and now you've got 3 different reference points. So when you're changing lanes, you're checking your mirror, you have to look at the screen, and then you've also got to pay attention to what's going on ahead of you, right? In case somebody slams on the brakes. I would much prefer a blind spot information system like what Honda puts on the Elite version of the Pilot and like what it puts on all of its Acura products. That's a superior solution to the issue of helping the driver understand what's in the blind spots, because it provides the warning either on the mirror or near the mirror, which is where the driver's already looking. Now, if it sounds like I've been kind of tough on the Accord, you're right, I have. Take it with a grain of salt. No car is perfect, including this updated 2016 Accord. What you've detected in this video is my frustration with some of the obvious oversights on Honda's part. They just spent all kinds of money updating this car, but then they overlook really simple things like making ventilated front seats available on the top end trim, or putting a front seat height adjuster in for the front seat passenger, or adding a little grab handle to shut the trunk with. I mean, if Honda had just spent a little bit more time benchmarking the competition and maybe not worrying about making an Accord touring sedan a direct competitor to an Acura TLX, then they'd have a perfect 4-door family sedan. Now, you can read my full review on CarGurus.com to get all my opinions and all the details on the new Accord. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to share it. Every week we're publishing new videos, so be sure to subscribe to our CarGurus YouTube channel. And for all of us at CarGurus, thank you for watching. Some of the imperfections. Car coming. As close to perfect as it gets. Almost there. Just about as perfect as it gets in this class. For CarGurus, please be sure to share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to some of those things, man, like ventilated seats, I love them. You know what I'm saying? Here comes the car.
That was a good one too. I think that was your most passionate one.
That was my most passionate one.